Welcome to the Creative Freedom Plan, a podcast and membership hosted by yours truly, Michael Emily Schuster. I'm here to empower creatives like you with the training you need to become full-time, financially free online entrepreneurs. On this podcast, I'm sharing all of my best strategies, wisdom, and mindset shifts that will allow you to self-actualize as a creative, build the business of your dreams, and become truly free. In this episode, I am speaking with Kimberly Dunn, a colleague of mine, a fellow creative entrepreneur and coach who specializes in the horsemanship and mindset coaching space. Kimberly is an incredible person with such an interesting story, and we dive deep into her background, how she got to be the kind of person with the skills and perspective and wisdom that she has today, which is one of the most interesting things about all of the creative entrepreneurs who I've met. Everyone has such an interesting backstory because you end up being the kind of person who is really creating a life all your own. You're not following any sort of blueprint, any sort of example for how to live your life. You're really living creatively and doing it all on your own terms and turning your experience, your story, your knowledge and skills into something valuable that you are offering to other people, building that into a thriving business that gets to support you and change the lives of others along the way. That is what is so magical about this creative entrepreneurship journey. So we dive deep into Kimberly's story, what she dealt with growing up, being a little bit of a black sheep in the horsemanship space, how she noticed gaps in her own training and experience becoming a horse. She's a horse trainer, but she's also a human trainer because she works closely with the pair, the horse and the person, so that they can have the trust that they need to really effectively operate together and be bonded as a pair, which is such a rewarding experience. So we get into her story, how she got the mindset experience that she now shares with her clients. And we talk a lot about the journey of entrepreneurship itself, things that she's applying now that are making a big difference. And she shares a lot of advice for new creative entrepreneurs who are just starting out and may not be technologically savvy, because she is very open about technology being the challenging part for her. I think you'll really enjoy this conversation with Kim and just take away all of the parallels from her story that can be mirrored in your own, because we all have challenges and we all get to have breakthroughs through those challenges that we can alchemize into something truly worthwhile inside of our businesses, where we get to help other people transform their own lives the same way that we have transformed ours. So without anything further, please enjoy the show. It's just so valuable, I think, to hear other people's stories and the ways that you've gone about creative entrepreneurship and any challenges and hurdles specifically that you've encountered along the way, breakthroughs, epiphanies, whatever that looks like. So that's what I'm really interested in hearing about from you.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. It certainly is a journey, isn't it? It's I think it's probably like the biggest thing that will change you as a person and really make you look inward is having your own business and bloody trying to put yourself out there.
Yeah, because it does seem like everything that you're challenged by is bringing you to that next step where you actually want to be.
Yeah, and it will really show you like what you're made of, and it will test you as to whether you actually believe in what you're doing and you truly want to make it work.
100%. But I feel like we come from a similar perspective where it's like, this is what we're here to do. It doesn't matter if we go viral overnight and make it happen like that. It's more just like putting in the time, putting in the work, because I have a sense that you are in your purpose, you're in your calling, and it doesn't really matter how long it takes to get to whatever, version of success that you've defined for yourself, because just being in your purpose and working towards that is going to be so fulfilling.
Yeah, because when I do what I do and help people, it is truly the best feeling, especially when, you know, people have breakthroughs, whether it's just within themselves or whether it's with their horses. It's the best feeling. And it's funny, when I teach as well, I go into such a weird, like into a bit of a flow state, and I say things and I think, I didn't even know I knew that. It's funny, like the things you pull out of the out of the ether. But yeah, it truly does feel like my purpose and why I'm here. And I have this weird kind of inner, like solid inner knowing that I just have to keep going, and this is what I'm meant to be doing. You know, whether or not, you know, like I post something on Facebook and it gets 0 likes, or it's still like this thing in me, just keep going.
I want to hear more about the flow state, but I think it would be really cool for you to just give an entire overview of like where you started, what you're doing now, and what the journey has been. How did you come to such confidence and such clear knowing about what your purpose is?
I guess it was weird, really. So I kind of was going down the usual horse trainer path that all like people in my position do, like who love horses. I didn't quite want to just be like an instructor or a coach, so I figured that a horse trainer, that's what I have to be. I'm a horse trainer. So that was really like my purpose when I went traveling and working around the world and working with different horse trainers. It was with the view of me ending up as a horse trainer. When I got back to the UK and COVID hit in 2020, and I was working with a friend at her place, we were, you know, in this nice little kind of like haven in the Cotswolds, which is very pretty. Lots of tourists go there. It's lovely. Training horses, and that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And it was really great to kind of put my own like training program together with the horses and things. It was a great time to kind of figure myself out with and kind of integrate everything I'd learned from everyone everywhere. But what also happened was it kind of really dawned on me that I don't want to be a horse trainer who has their own barn, who has horses in for training, and be tied down like that. Because what I had seen time and time again in my time working with horses in the UK and abroad is, unless you have loads of staff, you are tied to that place. You are there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and you can do nothing else. You barely have a life outside of that. And that didn't sit well with me, but I kind of was just putting that to the side and just kept going. And then the more coaching I was doing, the more I was seeing that actually the people needed as much help as the horses did. And it was something that was like, that wasn't sitting well with me, in that I wanted to help the person as much as the horse. And to me, like, my thinking was, yeah, I can help the horse, but I'm doing this pairing, this partnership, a disservice if I'm not helping the person as much as I can as well, with their own kind of like how they are around the horse, and helping the horse with times when they're nervous or anxious or stressed or whatever. And at that time as well, there was lots of things going on here. I was just starting to get more into self-development and learning more about myself and my own mindset. And I'd kind of started that journey, which I think a lot of people did, you know, during COVID and with all the lockdowns and things. Everyone kind of, not everyone, but most people kind of went inward, I think. So that's kind of where the seed started. And then I just had this random idea of making like I honestly don't know where this came from, a random thing dropped in my head, this like a message from above or from the universe or wherever, that, you know, I needed to make an online course. And again, I just thought to myself, online course, and just put it to the side. And it wasn't until I moved back up to Nottinghamshire, like my time had ended where I was in the Cotswolds, so I moved back home for a bit. I started then putting the course together, which became the Enlightened Equestrian program. And that's where, when I met you and we worked together inside of OCA, and that's where I really, really kind of like refined that course and then launched it. So yeah, that's where it started really. And then I did my hypnotherapy qualification as well, and the mind coaching, and then did my NLP practitioner certificate. And the more I learned about that, again, like the more kind of obvious to me it became that I really need to be helping people more with their mindset. That's where the whole "your horsemanship starts with you" came from, because it really truly does. You know, it's not, horsemanship is not just about telling your horse what to do and making them do things. Like, it's so much about you and your energy, what you bring to the table. So yeah, that's kind of the big thing I'm trying to help people with right now, is realizing that and then tapping into it. It's funny, like the more people I work with, especially with the Enlightened Equestrian program, they're not just changing their lives with their horse and their relationship with their horse, like their whole lives outside of it changing. Like, people are changing jobs, and so many different things are happening outside of it. It's cool. I love it. Sorry, I went off on a massive tangent there.
That's super cool. No, I love hearing about all of it. And it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense to me. And like one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you more about what you do, because it fascinates me, because I had experience with horses as a kid growing up. You know, I was one of those horsey girls that absolutely had to have a horse, lived on a farm. My parents didn't have any experience. They said, no way, you will never own a horse. But, you know, I bargained with them and I said, if I buy it myself, can I get one? And they were looking to instill these good values like work ethic and, you know, you can do what you set your mind to kind of stuff. So they said, okay, if you work hard, you get a job, you can buy it yourself. So, you know, I was 10 or 11 when I got my first job and started saving up.
Oh.
And eventually I bought a horse, just an old, like 29-year-old Appaloosa gelding. His name was Silver. He was just beautiful. I loved him. But anyway, long story short, I learned how to ride. I learned like how to do groundwork, how to, you know, groom and work with horses, but I was lacking such confidence, inner confidence, that like going for rides wasn't a great experience for me or the horse. So like we were bonded, we were buddies and we would hang out all the time and he was like, you know, a really special pet, friend, what have you. But like riding was not a good time for either one of us. You know, the horse would get stressed, I would get stressed because, you know, I just think that it's not enough to learn how to instruct the horse. Okay, left,
Yeah.
right, stop, go. Like, no, there's such a missing piece to the puzzle. And that's that confidence and inner work that you're talking about, that you're filling in.
It's frustrating for me when people don't realize it and I can see it. I'm like, oh my God, I could really
Hmm.
help you with this if you would just let me. I think that's where knowing all of this stuff can be a bit of a curse sometimes, because you can see, you know, oh, if you would just let me do some hypnotherapy with you or, you know, whatever, you'd be able to fix it, but can't fix everything.
Yeah, totally. I want to hear more about what it was like for you growing up and like how you got started working with horses, how you got started in entrepreneurship. I get a sense that you're a bit of a black sheep in the horsemanship world. Have you always been, you know, a little bit of an independent thinker? Tell me about what it was like for
Uh,
you.
So yeah, so with horses, I have like a non-horsey family. Yeah, it's not a thing at all. I just was one of those weird kids that's kind of born with this passion and love for horses from being very young. Where it came from, I don't know. But you know, we'd be driving somewhere and I'd see a horse in a field and be like, oh, or like, you know, see them in a trailer or something. I'd be like, oh my God. And I used to have all the, back in the day, the videos of like films and, you know, like Black Beauty and the Black Stallion, and I just used to watch them over and over again. I was obsessed, and I had all these magazines and used to cut out articles and make little books, horse books. And yeah, I was a proper horse geek, but like barely spent any time with horses because we couldn't really afford lessons or anything. So I would go every now and then, and when I did, you know, I would really treasure it. But it wasn't until I was in my late teens again, kind of when I could afford it, similar to you, really. Like I just moved in with my dad at the time. I was living with my mum. We had like a few family dramas, and I ended up living at my dad's, and they kind of encouraged me to start going to this local yard. And yeah, I had a little Saturday job, so I used to pay to go for lessons. I'd pay and get the bus and then I'd walk from like one end of town to the other to get to the place. I very quickly started working there. And it was quite like it was a bit of a rough and ready place. So I got put on lots of horses that weren't particularly suitable for beginners. So learned everything the hard way, fell off a lot, got like battered and bruised, and but still loved it, still turned up, still spent my money on the bus getting there, and yeah, just really soaked it up, and spending time with the horses, just yeah, I absolutely loved it. So then I did Camp America, which was like my first little experience of traveling. Went to North Carolina, met some friends there that we are still in touch now, years later. And it's like 17 years ago or something insane, which is slightly depressing to me that it's that long ago. But yeah, we did that for 2 summers, and that was like my first taste of travel, my first taste of working abroad, and it was incredible. But it was also my first little introduction to Western, because previous to that I was like an English rider. When I say Western, it was Western tack, and we just literally, it was trail riding, taking kids out trail riding all day. So we just pointed and went. That was it. So it wasn't, anything to write home about. But that kind of was a seed for later on. I returned home, went to work for this eventing lady. So she did like 3-day eventing, hunting, and started going down the usual kind of horsey route that people go down in the UK, which is to obtain British Horse Society qualifications and was trained to be an instructor, and it's very regimented, and this is what you do. And that was not fitting with me, and I just was not getting on along well with it at all. Like all the kind of knowledge side of things and the care side of things with the horses was absolutely fine and great, but like the riding style and the instructing style of the lady I worked for just wasn't resonating. I wasn't learning anything. In fact, I was going backwards. I was getting really in my head. I felt like I was always bottom of the class. And this is kind of where my passion comes from for helping people, because I ended up in a place where I felt like I should give up horses because I just felt like I couldn't ride. And because I felt bottom of the class, and I kept falling off. I got in my head about falling off and just kept doing it over and over again. And I just hit rock bottom, quite literally, and just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think I should be doing this anymore. I don't want to be around horses anymore. I don't feel like I deserve to be around horses anymore.
Tell me more about that. When you say you don't deserve to be around horses anymore, like where was that coming from?
That was like because I felt like things kept going wrong, and when I was riding, I felt like I was a burden to any horse I rode, because I felt like I couldn't ride properly. I know now that it was just, I wasn't in a great place, confidence wise, self-worth wise, personally. So I was taking things, I talked about this in a post a couple of weeks ago, actually, like where I wanted everyone to like me, including the horses. And if I felt like they didn't, then that was because there was something wrong with me. So at that age, I was kind of 19, 20. That was very much where my head was at, which is really sad.
I think it's very common.
Yeah. And I've done so much work on that now. And I do wish I could kind of go back and give my younger self a hug and just say, it's okay. Just relax a bit. Yeah, it's so intense at that age, isn't it? Yeah, so I was kind of in that space, and I ended up leaving where I was, moving back up to Nottinghamshire, and then I saw a advert for a place that I ended up working for like 8 years, which was a Western riding facility. And that kind of changed everything, really, because it kind of plucked me out of the world that I had been in, where I felt like I was failing, put me somewhere completely different, totally different facility, totally different way of working, totally different horses, because they're all quarter horses, you know, and previous to that, I'd been working with big hunting horses, eventers, and all the rest of it. And obviously that's that very regimented style. Whereas here it was a bit more laid back. It was all quarter horses who were smaller and just lovely. I started riding Western, which was massively different and it was difficult for me to transition from one to another. But it also, once I was there, I was just like, oh, okay, this is it. It just felt so much more natural and more enjoyable. And I had different coaching, totally different coaching style, which really fitted with me, which taught me a lot about, you know, how different coaching styles can just totally change your world. And yeah, just kind of flourished there, really, and ended up running the place and competing and teaching and going out to competitions and grooming. And it was just kind of changed everything.
That's incredible.
So, yeah. And so it basically kind of, it built my confidence up loads. It gave me so many more skills and knowledge and experience, and was just awesome. And I also realized then that I had a talent for coaching and teaching, particularly helping people with confidence. I think because it really meant a lot to me to help people feel good about themselves when they rode and when they spent time with horses, because I had, you know, been in that position where I didn't feel good about myself, and I could really kind of empathize with that that horrible feeling of not being very good, or, you know, whatever. This was all kind of tested in quite a funny way, and it really showed me that I needed to look more into my own mindset and self-worth and everything, because I got to a point where I was ready to move on. I wanted to learn more, and that's where I kind of ended up doing my first trip away, working abroad with Western horses on my first ever trip to Australia. And I went to work in a little Western riding school outside of Melbourne. And the lady there, so bearing in mind I'd spent 8 years working at this other place, competed, been running the yard, helped with some of the training horses, been teaching, So I had all this experience. Went and worked at this other place, and within about 3 days, the lady who I went to work for she was very tough. She was like a proper old school countryside horsewoman, like gruff, you know, scary lady. Within about 3 days, she had like reduced my confidence to like just about nothing. And suddenly I was questioning everything about myself. Like, oh no, yeah, I'm not very good at this, am I? Maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. And it was so funny how that, you know, actually I had built all this up, but actually it was on a really fragile foundation that completely crumbled with this lady. So like looking back on that, it's made me realize that, yeah, you really have to kind of go in and do the work so that you can have that faith in yourself to know that, yeah, actually you do know things and you can do things. And just because somebody does something differently to you doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that there's another way of doing things that you can try, and if you like it, great, and if you don't, then not like that's the end of the world and that means you're rubbish. So interesting.
I have more questions about that inner work that you did yourself and the mindset piece, because I have a very similar experience, totally different environment of, you know, going through that people pleasing phase, like I think that's what we can call it, where you want everyone to like you. And that's where all of your self-worth comes from. If people don't like you, if people don't validate you, there's no sense of inner confidence. And then reaching a very low point on that, because it's not a sustainable way to go about life in any sense.
Yeah.
And then entering a different environment, gaining confidence in that environment, but then leaving the environment and finding that oh, the confidence was tied to being in an environment that was well suited to me and my
Yeah.
strengths. So it was all
Yeah.
kind of just this facade that was built up. So tell me
Mm,
about your mindset journey, gaining confidence, and how that propelled you into the position that you're in now, like
mm.
entrepreneur, coach, leader, confidence and mindset guide for others. Because I
Yeah.
think that like what's so cool is how coaches in particular, and I think, creatives in general, but we take our hardships and we alchemize them into something that's valuable for other
Mm.
people, whether that's, an entertaining story, whether that's a coaching program, whether that's leadership and guidance. But that's what's really, really cool about what we're all
Yeah.
doing as creative entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. It's so much fuel for the fire, isn't it? And I think it definitely fuels that purpose and that drive of why you're doing it as well. And it took me a couple of years really of traveling around and working for other people and kind of I'd build my confidence up and then it would crumble a little bit and then I'd build it up again and then it would crumble a little bit.
I'm curious about like what was going on in your life outside of work and stuff. Can you kind of run the
Yeah, yeah.
parallel to that as well?
Mm. Well, really, my life was just work, to be honest, right then. And I think I was tying a lot of my self worth to my work. And I was doing that thing that we do as people pleasers, where I was working all the hours that God sends. And I was being there everything to everyone except for myself. Like when I was working at the place I was at in Nottingham for 8 years, at that time I didn't have a boyfriend. I didn't really live outside of work. I would cancel things because there was something going on at work because I just lived for that place, and it was like I had this codependent relationship with my job.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of yeah that it's crazy really. When I look back, I had no boundaries at all with things going on outside of work. I would always work late and then cancel other stuff because work needed me and I had to be there, and I was the only person that could possibly get this and this done because nobody else would do it properly. I had to be there. It was just it was crazy really. So yeah, does that kind of answer that question?
It totally does. And it leads me to another, which is like, what was your like mental, emotional, physical health like when you were putting yourself in that position?
Not great really. It was a time where I would say my health is completely different now as regards to like actually looking after myself nowadays and eating properly and making sure I'm nourishing my body. And I was just living off of coffee like all day long, coffee, cake, whatever people would bring. I was not sleeping well. And yeah, I was just exhausted all the time because I was working. I would get home and just fall asleep on like drop on the bed and fall asleep, and I hadn't even like gone for a shower or anything yet. I just was so exhausted, and then I would be up again, at 6 super early. Well, before 6 sometimes. Yes, it wasn't good. And then mental health wise, I was stressed a lot. It was a weird dynamic really because I did truly enjoy my work and I loved teaching people. I loved the place. I loved the purpose of it. But I think I tied myself so much in it that also came with a lot of stress. It was definitely like a workaholic situation, which is not healthy. And I definitely had a lot of cortisol running all the time because of that. So yeah,
It's so
crazy really.
interesting how you can be in the right place doing the right things, but if your
Yeah,
relationship to it isn't healthy, then it can end up not being such a great thing for you overall. I'm
yeah.
curious about the potential, like, was it a breakdown that led to a breakthrough? Like, what was the turning point where you realized that things needed to change?
Well, I'd gotten to the point where it had become clear that I'd made myself so indispensable there that they stopped sending me out to shows and things, which was where I wanted to be. I wanted to be going out and doing things as well. And I had ended up staying at home a lot and looking after the place, which was starting to irritate me a bit. but also, like, I wasn't progressing in the way that I wanted to, when it came to training the horses and things. I wanted to be doing more, and I wasn't, again, because I'd made myself indispensable in the yard and with the day-to-day running of things. So yeah, that had started to grate on me a little, and that was rubbing me up the wrong way a bit. But the major turning point and oh my God, I need to make a change, was this guy had come over from the US to teach a clinic, and I knew who he was, and I was a fan of his work, and I managed to get myself on that clinic. And he had come over with this lady friend that he had, and she was Australian, and she had spent time in Canada traveling and working with horses, and was now in America, and then was going on to Europe after. And she told me about her travels, and it just was so inspiring. And I was like, oh my God, there's a whole world out there that I'm not seeing. This had been my world for so long. And suddenly she, like, having chats with her, like, really opened up the world for me and made me remember that actually there was more outside of this than that. There was more to life than this place. And then on that clinic, I learned loads. And again, that kind of opened my mind to all the different things I could be learning, but I wasn't at this point. And so after that clinic, I messaged the chap and said, please, can I have a job? And he said, yes. So that was kind of it, really. I was like, right, okay. So this is where the change happens. But he at the time he was Australian as well, and he was still awaiting his green card and finding a farm to stay on in the US. So he said, yes, you can, absolutely. I'm not in a place right now where I can employ people in, so give me some time and I'll be in touch. So that is when I was like, right, okay, I'm going to go traveling. I need to go somewhere different. And that's when I sorted out going to work in Australia for that lady near Melbourne. So that was kind of my first, shift away. And then, it was crazy really how all of that happened. I think sometimes things come along to just kick you out the nest, don't they? You've made yourself all comfy in this place for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
comfy, but ultimately unsatisfied.
Yeah.
Thriving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So I'd love to hear like how you incorporate all of what you've learned into what you now offer and what you now teach, like kind of the final like alchemy that you've created to now share with other people from your own experience and how all of that ties in.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, the biggest thing that I want to share with people and help them with is that connection with that horse and the understanding. So like understanding themselves and how they can help themselves in any given moment to feel calm, to actually function.
Someone's freaking out. What do you tell them? What are the tools? How do you go about it?
So nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, ultimately. So helping them through little bits of breath work, through different things. Like I'll tell them, like a big one I use is like on the way to driving to the yard or barn, like put your favorite music on and sing your head off, because that is the most mood altering thing. I love it. It brings so much joy. Yeah. It just brings you into that feeling of joy. It gets you to, like, if you have anything that's been annoying you, you can scream your head off and it will just like shift everything. Yeah, so that just like little tools like that I'll give people to just help them in the moment. And then I'll help them with their mindset and talk about things like, you know, starting to change the narrative that goes on in their head with their self-talk, whether it's in their head or whether it's out loud. because that is never helpful often, what, you know, the habits that people get into with that.
What's the typical self-talk that a client, when they first come to work with you, like where are they typically at?
A lot of catastrophizing, a lot of catastrophizing with their horses, or, you know, if, you know, my horse is going to do this, this, and this, and then I'm going to end up in hospital, and then I'm not going to be able to work for 3 weeks. And then, like, it goes from, you know, the classic one is they'll be going out on a trail ride or a hack if you're in the UK, and they'll hear a car in the distance, and it goes from hearing that car coming to, oh my God, there's a car coming. The car's going to hit the horse is going to die or break its leg. I'm going to end up in hospital. Then there's going to be a helicopter. Then I'm not going to be able to go to work. And it goes to this whole like thing. And then, of course, then their heart's racing. Then they're in fight or flight. And then their horse is like, oh God, what's going on up there? Should I be worried? It's like a whole thing. What I want to do is give people the tools to help themselves in the moment. So like a bit of nervous system regulation. Then give them the tools to create self-awareness, to understand what's going on in their mind and how they can start to make changes. Often then I'll step in and do a bit of hypnotherapy or like NLP work and things like that. But then the other side of it is giving them the tools to truly understand their horse and what their horse is doing, why they're doing it, and how they can help them. Because I find, and I certainly found in myself, like the biggest thing that affects your confidence with your horse is not knowing what to do. Like your horse is doing something, but you don't know what to do. And then that's where the fear comes in and the worry, because you're like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to help them, you know, and then this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. Whereas if you actually know what to do and how to help your horse, whether that's through helping calm them down and moving them around, or through having better groundwork skills where you actually have a handle on your horse and they're not running over you or doing whatever, like that instills so much confidence, because then you feel like, yeah, I've got this. I can deal with this. I can deal with whatever happens because I know what to do. So that's kind of the foundation of it.
How much of it is tied to how much of the horse's emotional regulation, nervous system regulation is tied to the rider or the owner?
It makes a big difference on the horse, because really the horses look to us for guidance. Like I'm really big on, you know, your relationship with your horse is a partnership. And I would say it's 50-50. Like you give as much as the horse does. And it's really important to your horse that you can be their anchor and you can stay that calm, regulated person, because they will feed off you with that. And if you panic and you don't know what to do and you can't offer guidance, they will then feel as if they need to take over in that moment. So that's where you get the, you know, them running into you or trying to run away or whatever, because they're like, well, you can't help me. I don't know what's going on. So I'm either going to go or run you over on the way out, or, you know, whatever. So yeah, and it's definitely through the window or the lens of having that partnership, a respectful partnership, mutual respect, and a foundation of consistency. We must have boundaries, but these boundaries do not need to be like, you will do this, you will do that. It's kind of a, please don't stand on me, just stay there, kind of a boundary, if you see what I mean. Because there is a lot of horsemanship out there that is a little more, if you don't do this, your horse is going to step on you, so you need to make them do this, you need to tell them this, or la, 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 and that's not what I'm into.
It's really about trust.
Yes, trust.
Well, now I'm really curious about the entrepreneurship journey. And like, how would you define success for yourself, or, you know, personal financial freedom, I suppose is what we could call it. Like what is your goal? Like obviously to help people transform their lives and their relationships with their horses, but like personally in this entrepreneurship space, what does the goal look like for you?
Yeah. Oh, this is a good question. I like this. So yeah, for me, obviously, yes, to be able to reach as many people as possible and help as many people and horses as possible. I'm not like looking to be world famous, millions of followers or whatever. I'm just happy to help as many people as I can and to change lives. That's great. And reaching people around the world through the podcast and things is great. And if I can help people around the world with the program and all the coaching I do, great. But like personal goals would be just earning enough so that I can truly live my best life with my dog and my horse. And the goal is, and I'm not there yet, but it is getting there, is to have my own place and to be able to live a life that I love, where I'm doing my job, but I'm also having that downtime to travel and to have other hobbies that aren't horses, and just live the life that we're all here to live, that's fulfilling and nourishing. And I want to be eating all the best food and just living a nourishing life. And where I am in the UK now, in Devon, it's beautiful, it's near the coast, so there's beautiful coastal walks and obviously beaches. So to be able to be a bit of a beach bum and all of that stuff would just be wonderful. So
amazing.
That's the goal.
I see some of your stories on Instagram where you're going for walks with your dog or your horse, and it just looks idyllic.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful down here. I really love it.
I'm curious, what does that get to look like? Like, what are the milestones? And I'm really asking for any listeners who are curious about their own entrepreneurship journey. Like, what does it take to get to that point?
Yeah, well, a lot of showing up. Showing up every week, getting the content out, the social media done, recording the podcast every week and plugging that out every week. I write blogs as well, and I write articles for magazines, and really just keep putting myself out there as much as I can, doing it in such a way that it doesn't drive me insane as well. There's that balance there, isn't there, of I have to make sure I take breaks off social media now and then, and try not to get too caught up in things like algorithms and keeping up with trending things on Reel and stuff like that. I just have to find that balance there. But it's just showing up, working with the right people as well, finding good coaches or good content to follow that is helpful in regards to mindset with that kind of thing, but also like tactics, like how should you be posting and how often and what content and who should you be speaking to. Just getting strategies and things like that on board, and continuing to educate myself on that, and speaking to people like you, peers, and supporting each other, because this journey is not an easy one.
Absolutely. How do you approach your overall content strategy, and like how do you stay excited about showing up consistently when I get the sense that you love the work that you do with people, with clients, with horses, and it's like, the social media is part of that to grow the business and give you the opportunities to work with people and change lives. But is social media, like, is that where you find your joy as well, or is that just kind of something that goes along with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is. I would say that kind of peaks and troughs a little bit. Sometimes I enjoy it, and sometimes I really hate it.
What does it look like when you enjoy it versus when you don't? What's the difference there?
So what it looks like, as a generalization, first, I try to have like a Monday as my content day. So I will get everything scheduled out on a Monday. If I'm feeling really productive, I'll get the podcast and everything done on a Monday as well, and I'll do like a weekly email newsletter and things like that. I'll get all that done then. I would say it depends on my cycle as well, like as to how I'm feeling with it. I find that some phases I might not feel as enthusiastic or be able to like pull ideas out of the sky as well as I can on other days or other weeks. So that definitely plays a part in it, which I think is important to say. But I think I just have to make sure I take breaks, because if I let myself get too caught up in things like whether my posts are being shared or liked, or whether I'm launching something and there's a bit of pressure on, I can find that then when there's a bit more pressure on, I start not enjoying it as much, because there's pressure there to sell something. Or but recently I've been taking a bit of guidance from some coaches in the UK, and I found that it's been working just with how I write out posts and things. And I've found that my content has started to get more interactions and things, and I've had more signups to a masterclass I just did, and that started to feel good. So that's good, because it's getting
so cool.
Successful. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing some of the tips and stuff that you've learned with the podcast?
It's just, it's just really aiming the content at your clients, but also it's how you structure the post. So it's a bit more about like saying what you have on offer, and then talking a bit about your clients or problem or what's going on, how you're going to fix it with this thing, and how they can, like, there's a couple of different formulas that they used, and I just kind of copied and pasted some of the stuff and then changed the wording around to fit like my clients. But yeah, there's a definite like little formula that they use, and I was going back and just, I think this is a really good thing to do, and this is what I did for this, and there's no, well, for me there's no shame in this, just going back and looking at their posts and basically using them as templates, and then changing them up for my ideal client, and it's worked, and it's been a lot easier. It's taken some of the guesswork out of it for me, because I was finding that I was posting and I was just, nothing was happening, and I was being quite random about, like, I'm trying to provide information to people, but then when I try and sell, that's when I'm getting crickets. So people like it when I give them information, but the second I try and sell them something, everyone's like, nah. But through posting like this, it was getting more interaction. So I think it's really speaking to people's needs and not being afraid to call those needs out and say, look, I know how it feels to not feel confident about this because blah de blah, but here's how this might help. And yeah, it's interesting, and there are elements of it. I really enjoy the creative side of things. I do like writing copy and things, but I find I run into problems technology wise sometimes. Like, it took me a long time to get the hang of Canva. I'm still not there with Canva yet. Yeah, I don't have much patience for that. So educating myself on that has been a journey too.
There's so much, from filming content to editing content to doing graphics to writing copy. Like, there's so much that goes into it that you're just bootstrapping and figuring out along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Because that is the thing that I think people don't realize about entrepreneurs is when we start out, like, it is just us doing everything. Like, so I'm out teaching people with their horses, I'm out helping people with mindset stuff on calls, but then I'm also writing articles and writing copy for posts and trying to design things on Canva, and then trying to do emails and figure out blooming email programs and getting all that scheduled, and then recording a podcast and editing a podcast, and then putting together the artwork for the podcast, and then scheduling it all. It's like, it's so much, and we just take it all on and have all these different hats. And
I love what you said about not taking it too seriously though, and maintaining kind of a sense of play around it, where it doesn't have to be such a serious make or break kind of thing. It's more about just getting in the reps, getting in the experience, so that your next graphic can be even better, because you've learned so much from all of what you tried and failed with in this one, but you put it out there because it's what you had and it was good enough. And there's just such an evolution aspect to what we're doing. And this is what I try to instill in clients all the time, which is like, you're gonna have those perfectionistic tendencies, and you're gonna want to put something out that you're so stoked and you're so proud of. But no matter how much you love it right now, you're gonna look back in a year and be humiliated because you'll have progressed so much. So it's like, be less attached to what you're doing now and just
Yeah.
embrace the evolution and embrace the journey of it, because you're always going to be improving and learning and doing things
Yeah.
differently. And that's what it's really all about, is committing to this journey itself.
Yeah, definitely. And just doing it. And just like, I think we both learned when we were in the OCA together that it is just doing it, just putting things out there and just letting go of that perfectionism and just starting.
That messy
Just,
action, baby.
yes, exactly. Yeah, messy action. Yeah, just doing it. And it does take an element of like bravery and oh my goodness, and doing it. But once you start
Big
doing it,
time.
you do. Like when I first started doing the podcast, I was so in my head about that, and it's so funny. Like if I listen to the very first episode, I'm all over the place. I'm like and and now I just talk and it's great. I'm just like blah, blah, blah. And I don't even really edit them that much, because it's just nice to I just talk, I just do the thing, I just kind of flow with it and put it out there, and people like it and people listen. So yeah, no
Absolutely.
perfectionism here.
That's
Not anymore.
amazing. It's quite a journey that you've been on, when I hear you talk about like coming from a place of such a people pleaser, needing people to like you, to
Yeah.
showing up regularly online. You're like, yep, no one liked that
Yeah.
post, and it is what it
Yeah.
is. I'm gonna put another one out there tomorrow because this is what I do, and I'm here to help people, and I don't need the likes or the validation, because it's so much
Yeah.
bigger than that. What
Yeah.
advice would you have for someone, or when you talk about wanting to give your younger self a hug and tell them that
Mm.
it's all going to be okay? Like what would be that little nugget of golden wisdom that you could share with someone who's at the beginning of their journey, and they know that they're meant to show up as a creative and build a business online. They have some sort of wisdom, some sort of story to share, some value that
Mm.
can help people, but they're terrified and they
Yeah.
don't yet have the confidence. What would you tell them about gaining that confidence? Or is it just a matter of doing it when you're scared? What would you say?
it it's definitely a case of just taking a breath and taking that first step and making that post and just putting it out there, and just trusting that this is your first step on your journey, and there will be more steps that follow, and each step gets you closer and closer to the dream that it is that you're working towards. Definitely invest in getting help. So getting help and support, because I know that was such a big kick up the bum that I needed for me, for helping give me strategy, for even just hearing other people's stories as well, and getting that support and accountability with keeping on posting, and just advice on the business world and the creative world, and just knowing that we all, you know for those of us that are showing up on Instagram and everything looks great, but there are all struggles behind that, and we're not all just smashing it and earning six figures every week. We're all working really, really hard to make it happen, and it will happen if you keep going. Don't give up.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I tell my clients. I'm like, look, this is a long game,
Yeah.
and 80% of people are going to quit. And if you
Yeah.
can just be the one that doesn't, I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen, because
Yeah.
pretty soon you'll be among the top 20% that never quit, and you'll
Yeah.
get your name out there, you'll get that recognition, and the
Mm,
world just kind of opens up, and it's such a beautiful thing.
yeah. I think as well, another like massive thing, and this still helps me now, is looking for people that expand you to what is possible, to people that like other entrepreneurs, and just seeing people's success stories and hearing about the struggles that it's taken to get them there. I actually, one really good one for me, I don't know if you listen to Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett. Did you hear that there was the episode with Simon Cowell recently? And I wouldn't say I was a fan particularly of his. And I listened to the podcast, and it was so interesting. And he talked about how, like, at 30, he went bankrupt and moved back in with his parents. Just like, oh my God, like, that is insane. So it's just so cool to hear things like that, because, you know, someone even as, you know, seemingly successful and, you know, this, I don't know, multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever he is, like, he went bankrupt and had to move in with his parents when he was 30.
That's
I
amazing.
love hearing stories like that. Yeah, because it just really kind of makes you think, yeah, okay, I've got this. I'm just going to keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's so much more to even like the most successful people that you see. Like, everyone has the struggles and the hurdles that they come through. I'm going to have to listen to that one because that's so validating for someone who at 27 moved home and was definitely judging herself for it.
No, like, yeah, 100%. No, I'm still like, I'm at home right now when, I think, so for me, I was like, oh my God, thank God.
That's
thank
amazing.
God, makes me feel better. But yeah, no, it's not, none of us, I think that, you know, that life of getting married, having a few kids, buying a house and doing the normal thing, like, I think that's becoming less and less normal now, actually. And so many of us are carving our own paths, and that can look any kind of way. It can look so different for all of us. And I think it's remembering that, yeah, we're all on our own individual path, and it's okay to not be like everyone else. And just because you are a bit of a black sheep and you're not following the same path as everyone else doesn't mean you're any less successful or gonna be any less successful or unhappy. Actually, you're probably much happier than someone that's just doing the general, you know, thing
for the sake of doing it because they've been told that that's what they like. There's nothing wrong with the traditional way of living if that's really what calls to you, but I think it's so important to just be honest about what you want and what's important, and know that it's 100% okay to do things completely different. And it really is all of the challenges and struggles. That's what makes an epic story.
Well, yeah, and there's really nothing else I want to do, so it has to work.
Yeah, so and you talk about where you want to be, but when I hear you say that there's nothing else that you would rather be doing with your time, that's the win right there, because even the definition of financial freedom is having the means and the opportunity to do what you want to do. And even if you're not in your most ideal situation, to have given yourself the personal freedom to be doing the only thing that you want to do, that's a big ass win right there.
I think you're right. And I think also just so sometimes I'll talk to friends and they'll say, like, you're just so, you know, that they admire me for doing this and for following, you know, this path, because I guess it does seem really scary to some people. But I don't know, I'm on it now, so I better keep going.
Yep, exactly. I've loved having you on the podcast so much. Thank you for being my first ever guest on the Creative Freedom Plan. This has been so much fun. I would love for you to just let everybody know where they can find you. You've got the podcast, you've got a blog, you're active on Instagram and Facebook. Tell me about everything that you have going on and any paid offers like masterminds or programs that people can also get involved with.
Thank you. Yeah. So yes, I have a website which is www.idlewildhorsemanship.com. But yeah, I'm on Instagram, which is at the Horsemanship and Mindset Coach. Also on Facebook at Idlewild Horsemanship and Mindset Coaching. Podcast is on Spotify and it's the Enlightened Equestrian podcast. So where else? What else have I got on? And at the moment, so I am in the process of launching a new little program, which I'm very excited about. So in a couple of weeks, I think it's the 9th of July, I'm starting the Enlightened Equestrian Summer School. Yeah, which is really cool. It's this little 6-week group program where each week for 6 weeks, I'll be doing a live call teaching participants about their own mindset, their horses, and how they can retrain their brains and their horses over the course of 6 weeks, giving them lots of different nuggets of information. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. That's starting soon. And then always taking on mindset clients with varying different packages. So
that's amazing. Yeah. What's the best way to reach you? Just a DM on Instagram if somebody wants to get involved?
Yes. yes,
Perfect.
message me on Instagram. Yeah.
Thanks again, Kimberly. This has
Awesome.
been so much fun.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor.
And cut. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Creative Freedom Plan podcast. And if you loved it so much you'd like to shout from the rooftops and share it on social media, be sure to screenshot, tag me at Michael Emily Schuster, and share it to your story so I can stalk your profile and we can connect over there. Much love to you, and I will see you in the next episode.